Kia ora tātou, nau mai, haere mai. And look, a warm welcome everybody, and nice to see a number of people in the gallery. Democracy is alive and well in Palmerston North. Again, a warm welcome to this, our first council meeting of the new term for Wednesday the 12th of November 2025. Just in terms of housekeeping and safety procedures, and unlike the event of an emergency, you've seen where you've come in and the green exit signs on hearing the alarm, and we will evacuate to the assembly area and near the clock tower there in the square to Maraehine. If we can just turn somebody's phone off, please. I recognise that ring. The building is a non-smoking and vaping facility, so if you need to do that outside the entranceway, please. Again, unlike the event of needing a defibrillator, we've got one of those down in the entranceway. And look, if there's any incidences, please report them to our committee administration. Toilets in the link span, just at the rear of the link span there, men's and women's. The meeting's being live streamed, and again, welcome to those online. And again, to officers, please, if you're answering a question, you know the drill, please, your name and title in the first instance, just to make it easier for those online. We have Councillor Leonie Harpiter online as well. So we will open proceedings with karakia, and I'll invite the Deputy Mayor to open.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship, o te rā, tēnā tātou I hui hui mai nei I tēnei rā. Kia hora te marino, may peace be widespread. Kia whakapapa pounamu te moana. May the sea be like greenstone. Hei huarahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, a pathway for us all today. Aroha atu, aroha mai. Give love and respect, and receive love and respect. Tātou, ia tātou katoa, let us show respect for each other. Haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. All right, apologies today. I don't have any apologies. We've got, as I said, we've got Councillor Harpiter online. Notification of additional items. There is none that I'm aware of. Nothing from the floor. Declarations of interest. I'll just declare an interest in number 22 around the Pacifica Centre. Councillor Naylor, to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to declare a conflict for items 16 and 17 due to the fact that I live in Atawhai Road. So I'll step back for those two items.
Okay. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll declare a conflict of interest in item 10.
Okay. Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I would like to declare an interest in item number 9, and I'll withdraw from voting.
Sorry, what was that? Item 9. Oh, okay. All right. And Councillor Harpiter. Item 9? Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, we'll move through to, I'm actually going to jump number 6 ahead of public comment. Now, I appreciate there is a couple in the gallery that would like to speak, and we'll come to you in a moment, but I think it's important that we acknowledge the services of former Councillor Rolly Fitzgerald. And Rolly, good to see you here. Thank you. And look, just a brief from me on Rolly, and I've actually known Rolly for many years. He actually used to work with my father many years ago, and I pulled an old photo out of my father's retirement, and there's Rolly in the background, serving the sausage rolls and things in the background. But yeah, so Rolly's been great working with you for the last 3 years. He has strong local connections to Rangitane o Manawatu and Ngāti Porou on the east coast. He was one of our first elected Māori ward councillors. He contributed very heavily around the LGNZ, Zone 3, and also Te Marata, LGNZ, Māori member group. He was a member of the Economic Growth Committee, the Culture and Sport Committee, the Sustainability Committee, and the Rangitane o Manawatu Committee. He's also a trustee of ROM, the Rangitane o Manawatu Settlement Trust, and if I could just acknowledge Debbie Tapuni here as well, from the same trust. And he's been a director on Rangitane's Investment Trust as well. He works in the housing space and has always had a real career in housing, from the market led to the public and social housing, and works for Te Tihi o Ruahine Alliance. And he also represented Rangitane with our sister city arrangement with Missoula and with the Salish Kootenai people. Had a good exchange with them. So thank you, Rolly, for your service. We've got a small gift, an appreciation, and we wish you well into the future. I'll just open it up if anybody else would like to speak to the Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship. Ngā mihi ki a koe e tutungani. Just to say, Rolly, what a privilege and a pleasure it's been to work with you. We both started at the same time. I know the skill set that you brought and the way in which you conducted yourself in the chamber and contributed quite significantly. I also know the work you do out in the community, particularly with regards to social housing, and it's been a pleasure to go along to the opening of those homes and see many, many whānau, just their whole face lights up, young and old, when they receive for the very first time the keys to their home. It gives them stability, it gives them a place to call home without fear of it being taken away. And I know that you will continue to contribute well in the community because you've always done that. So I wish you so much and well, Rolly, and I want to thank you. Kia ora.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Tēnā koe, Rolly. It's lovely to have you back in the chamber today. As I said when you came in, I miss you already. Rolly and I served together on LGNZ Zone 3 for the last triennium, and you get to know people a little bit differently when you do that kind of travelling together. We had many late nights of putting the world to rights, and I got to see a side of Rolly that maybe we didn't all see here in the chamber. But what I particularly saw in that work through LGNZ Zone 3, which is our regional grouping for all territorial authorities, was Rolly's staunch advocacy for the Māori Wards campaign. And many, many occasions where he connected with people who held a range of views to explain the position that he holds so dear and has spoken so powerfully about in this chamber. Also in presenting to LGNZ, to Zone 3, in order to gain support for that remit to go through to the conference. And that was such a difficult meeting, and I sat there proud to be in support of the kaupapa and of Rolly particularly, but there was a diverse range of views in the room, and some people were making those views very clear, and Rolly presented with his usual good humour, but also with his staunch commitment to what he knows to be right and true. And he carried the room on that day, and I was very proud to be in support of him then. And then also when we went down to Parliament to present to the Select Committee, where again, I think the Palmerston North contribution was notable for the quality of the arguments put forward, and Rolly, mihi to you in that regard. So thank you. I will miss our shared commitment to economic development and city centre vibrancy, which I think we know what that is code for. And I'll miss you, my friend. Go well. Kia kaha.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and yes, tēnā koe, Rolly. Just briefly to acknowledge your tremendous contribution alongside the Deputy Mayor in the first term for Te Pua Māori Ward. You set a clear, principled, calm approach that stood us all in good stead, and particularly for the quality of representation through that ward. I think that is a tone that has carried well through the recent election cycle and saw a majority choosing to keep that representation here at the table. And that, my friend, is your legacy for this city and for moderating this city, and thank you for that. Interesting to hear Councillor Bowen's reflections of life beyond the chamber, and absolutely would say that, in my view, your best moments were in some ways beyond the chamber. I had the privilege of being in some of those select committee moments as well, and I could only describe Raleigh's presence there as formidable. It was powerful, and it was exactly the sort of repping that our city needed in that moment. So actually, absolutely proud to have seen you in action there, and grateful to you, Raleigh, for that. Your passion for the housing, for Maori and more broadly city development has been incredibly clear through those 3 years, and it's really a testament to your willingness in life to give that gift back to the city through that representation here. We are going to absolutely miss your Zen-like calm in the chamber and the insights that you bring here, but understand that you are now moving on to a new chapter in life where you'll have, I guess, more time to focus on those housing developments, more time to focus on those opportunities out in the wider community. So again, just to acknowledge your service, you've set a brilliant first chapter in place for Te Pua Maori Ward, and look forward to that legacy being built on in future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bellin.
Tēnā koe mātua. I also had as my first point noting how much I will miss your calm and zen attitude. There's so many things that I will miss about having you here, and one of them is your kindness and consideration when you're dealing with your colleagues. And I really particularly value how you have embodied our agreed tikanga that we set for ourselves at the start of last term, and how often you would step up to bring us back to the way we said that we would conduct ourselves. And that's been enormously helpful in us having a very collaborative and cohesive term in the last 3 years. When you stand, people listen. And that's, I think, a huge testament to your integrity in your mana. And I'll really, really miss your lolly stash. Older.
You stole my line. So we all expect the jet planes as you go out the door. Yeah. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and tēnā koe, Rowley. Just really also wanted to stand and acknowledge your service to the city. And it's unfortunate where I always believe that first-term councillors are better in their second term, and for a range of reasons that didn't come off for you. But I wanted to acknowledge that you were a worthy candidate and worthy of a second term. It's when we're in a field of strong candidates, it's always a chance. I wanted to reference back our first connections through softball. Well before our time around this table, we were hitting the ball around at Calhoun Park, and as the Mayor quite aptly describes me as a softball tragic, in my mind, you're a softball legend, to give you some credit there. And so I want to connect again in the future, like our paths cross in many cases prior to this council table, but it doesn't have to end, and so I look forward to an ongoing friendship with you, and wish you well with all the other pursuits that you've got on. And like me, housing is important to you, and no doubt that'll be a clear focus moving forward, but also your work with rangatane, and that's of paramount importance, and particularly in this period of time in New Zealand. And so, yeah, tini whetū ki te rangi rangatane ki te whenua. Ngā mihi nui, my friend. Thank you.
Been about himself. He has always been about the bigger kaupapa. And that was never more obvious to me than during the election campaign, where, you know, every other one of us was out campaigning for ourselves to get re-elected. Rowley was supremely unbothered about whether he got re-elected or not. His only focus was on whether we would get the Maori ward through the referendum. And, you know, a couple of times we would say to him, oh, Rowley, you know, what about your own campaign? It's like, actually, it's not about me. If Maori wards get through, that's the thing that's most important to me. And I think that that's very admirable. And you can be very proud of the fact that Maori wards did come through, and that the example that you and Debbie set over the first term gave the wider population in Palmerston North confidence that there was nothing to be feared from a Māori ward, from Māori ward councillors, in fact, everything to be gained for everyone. So, as Brent said, that's your legacy, but I think your selflessness in going about that and making sure that that came about to be embedded as the Māori ward here, I think is very commendable, and I really wanted to just mention that. I do remember the select committee, and we were all a little bit afraid of Rowley almost, and I don't know what the people on the other side of the table were thinking, but Rowley is able to speak very firmly and strongly about things that he's passionate about, and we appreciated being able to be part of that kaupapa with you, so thank you. And just on the other note, I'm very grateful for the work that you do in the housing space. It's very much needed, and it's very valuable work, and whilst not being part of your council work, it is a work that contributes to the well-being of people in the city. So thank you for all of that, and kia kaha. Thank you.
Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rolly, I did do what everyone's been saying so far, but the thing about you that really struck me was you have a passion for homelessness and for people. It's something that I came to council with one of the things that got me motivated was doing something about homelessness. But you're someone, you have a passion about it, and you don't only talk about it, you do it. A lot of people are very good at talking about homelessness and doing something about it and talking about it and going from meeting to meeting. But you haven't gone from meeting to meeting. You've got out there and you've got on the road and you've done it. So congratulations, Rolly. You've made a difference to homelessness in the city. And no matter what you're remembered for, the difference you've made in that has been a great difference. Congratulations. Well done.
And Councillor Kuru.
Tēnā koutou. Nā mihi nui ki a koe I te rangatira. Just a big thank you for leaving such a strong legacy for me to follow in and all of us to come in future years. And just your absolute commitment to the kaupapa and to our people. And yeah, ki te mana whenua hoki. So nā mihi nui ki a koe, Rolly.
All right, thank you. We have a small gift for you, Rolly.
Last time we get to press that button. Au te rā, ngā mane ngā reo ngā pari kārangaranga, ngā manu o ute, ngā manu o tai. Ngā taimihi tangata e hoi mai nei runga o tō tātou waka tipua, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Mr Mayor, councillor colleagues, new councillors, I'm humbled beyond words. It's like a this is your life type moment. Now I know what Pat went through a couple of months ago. The privilege has absolutely been mine to be amongst you all, an honour to be an elected member for the first term. But I do want to start my thanks with acknowledging all those councillors and staff that worked tirelessly pre-Māori Wards Palmerston North to actually get Māori Wards into this chamber. That's where it all started. And on the back of that work, and some of you are still in the chamber today, Rangitane o Manawatu stood up to say the council have been our partner since the 60s. We need to get in there and support them by at least putting up a couple of candidates for the first Māori Ward seats, which was via Debbie and myself. Knowing there were 3 other Māori, not Rangitane, also keen to put their hands up, we were all good with that as well. It was to show our support from iwi back to the City Council, so that's where it started. So thank you to all those councillors and staff for creating this. Thank you, Lorna, for your words particularly. You would have seen my signboards through the election campaign. It was vote to keep Māori Wards, not so much vote for Rowley.
because the kaupapa is bigger than all of us. There will always be another seat at the chamber. There will always be another person to carry the load. But without that foundation of being able to retain Māori wards, it was always going to be very difficult. Having said that, I must acknowledge all of our whānau and friends from Etu, who worked tirelessly after hours, on weekends, knocking on doors on our behalf to get our tangata tīti, our non-Māori voters, to the election campaign. So thank you all very much as well. I'm not going to say too much more other than I wish you all the very best, and I miss you all dearly as well. I felt quite proud this morning getting up, saying, yes, I'm going back into the chamber today. And I'm sorry I didn't bring any lollies, but I will fix that. But your words have been so kind to me. Listening to you all talk about me was a very humbling experience, but one that I will treasure for the rest of my days and the rest of my life. I do want to acknowledge Te Tihi o Ruahine, who gave me that space to step out of my housing work for the first term to be able to participate in council as well. So stepping back into that role fills my heart with joy, as Deputy Mayor said. She's seen the faces of those families at the dawn ceremonies when we hand them the keys to their brand new whare. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Much love to you all. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Kia ora. All right, thank you. Okay, we're moving along, and we will now go to back to number 5, which is public comment. And I will ask Ben Schmidt to come up first, please. Sorry, Ben, just the button. There you go. And
Morena koutou councillors, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to acknowledge Rangitānei, the community, the councillors who have gone before, and those here today. Congratulations to you who are new. I want to talk about the proposal to have mana whenua representation on council committees, specifically arts and cultural. Why do I care? Because I am not Māori, I'm not Rangitānei, I've been called many things, but I am not artistic and I am not cultured. But I do care deeply about our city, our community, about the thriving arts and culture we have, which is only strengthened when everyone is at the table for the best decisions on our arts, culture and heritage. It recognises the role of Rangitānei. It's only logical that the culture, the heritage which was here before us, be represented with voting rights on that committee. It is democratic. Council has the power to determine the committee structures, the membership, the delegation. No one questions the delegated authority to the Chief Executive. Tomorrow, the District Licence Planning Committee is meeting and making decisions that will impact on our community, on our businesses. There is not a single elected councillor on that committee meeting tomorrow. But I don't hear any complaints or controversy about that. It is practical. Having the right voices at the table from the start means better decisions, less bureaucracy, more efficiency, as we say, measure twice, cut once, have the right people at the table to do that. This is not new, it is not bizarre. In 2019, many of you voted overwhelmingly to have a Rangitānei appointed represented on each committee of council. I applaud you for doing that. Keep on doing that. It wasn't controversial then, it should not be controversial now. So before out of time, I'm really proud of our city. I'm proud of how many of you have come together across political lines to make good decisions for our community, to recognise mana of Rangitānei. And I'm deeply disappointed to see attempts to turn our council our city into something more like the chaos and the culture wars we see at the Wellington City Council or in Parliament. We are Palmerston North. We're better than that. We have a history to be proud of. Let's keep that going. Vote for rangitane representation on committees, on our Arts and Culture and Heritage Committee. Kia ora.
Thank you, Ben. Now invite Julia Manson up, please.
Just before you put me on to the timer there, I am Te Raroa, Ngāpuhi on my father's side. I am Ngāti Koe, Ngāi Tahu and Rangatani on my mother's side. I just want to make that clear. What I am going to say now is my thoughts, nobody else's, and I have that right. What do you know, everybody? Nepotism, the act of granting an advantage, privilege or position to another. Impacts of nepotism, erosion of public trust, hinders effectiveness, breaks impartiality by creating conflicts of interest and undermines the integrity of decisions and processes. Result of nepotism, corruption. I am totally opposed to unelected rangitane reps with full voting rights on any council committee in our city. In fact, there is no room in our council for any unelected persons with full voting rights. No matter who they are, that is not democracy. You have no right to diminish and demean the people in this city by taking away their rights to the democratic system that our city is supposed to run on. What you are trying to do is introduce a tribal system of governance, and you do not have that right. We have a system that works not too bad when it comes to putting out in our input. The system is called submissions. What you are trying to do is introduce is just not good enough, and I will fight you. I voted in the council election. That's the system. Stop taking away the ratepayers' money. Not only do you steal our money and waste it, you now want to take away our rights to our democratic system. Mr. Mayor, I did not hear you telling the people what you intended to do regarding unelected rangitane reps with full voting rights. This is what I term your misplaced white guilt. Don't inflict that upon the rest of us. This land we stand on today was bought and paid for by the government of the day in 1864. You may have won your mayoralty. That does not give you the mandate to turn this council into a racial fiasco. My father, born 1914, fought in the Second World War along with thousands of other men and women who died fighting for our free and democratic society. And now, here you are, one day after Armistice Day, telling them it was all for nothing. Shame on you. He used to say many things to us kids. Nobody owes you a living, that's your responsibility. And the most important today, if you can't stand on the same start line as everyone else, get out of the race. If you want to be part of the council, put your name forward for election. Don't use your Maoridom to get things that other people have worked hard for. Maori are not special. We don't need people like you to put us in the category of victims from yesterday. You are sucking our mana out of us and taking over our responsibility for our own destiny. Kia ora, folks.
Thank you. I now invite Reverend John Hornblow to speak.
Kia ora, Your Worship and councillors. First of all, congratulations on being elected around the table. I know what that feels like as a former Deputy Mayor. It's good to have you here. I noticed that there is far more diversity than there was in some years. But let's also make sure there is a lot of unity, because you can hold unity and diversity. They're not mutually exclusive. And actually, unity with diversity is what the city wants. what the nation wants, and let's see it modelled in this chamber. I am here on behalf of my wife and myself. She's unable to be here, and we speak in support of Rangatani being on the committee that is being proposed. First of all, one of the important things to note is that the last elections in this city voted conclusively that Māori wards would be here. That is an indication that the people of this city, by majority, want to see Māori involvement in all our committees, in public committees and in civic affairs. And so far we have seen that over many years and have benefited from that. Secondly, we have a rich history of Rangatani involvement in city and community affairs, and we have in all benefited significantly from that and been enriched by it. And what we're proposing in this motion reinforces that and is a reflection of the people of this city wanting us to have Te Tiriti as a key foundation in what we do in terms of decision making. And as we have just heard, there is some concern that the inclusion of Rangatani members on the committee would be anti-democratic. Have I gone? That's it. I haven't had my time, so I thought something went wrong. We strongly disagree with that. There are precedents for non-elected members to be on committees. They were when I was around the table, and that continues. We've had an accountant on the finance committee. So what we are wanting at times is specialists who can bring that knowledge, that kaupapa, to the table. It is really essential for good decision making. Now sometimes committees can operate with delegated authority, but in most cases, any decision that is made in a committee has to come back to you as elected officials for you to then make that decision. Finally, I want to just draw your attention to the title of this committee. The name of the committee is the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee. I have a simple question. How can we not have Rangatani represented on a committee whose purpose is culture and heritage, which actually predated the foundation of the city with the Te Awiawis of 1870s selling the land here that we stand on now? How can we not have Rangatani on that committee?
Thank you, John.
So Jenny and I urge you to support this and know that it is a positive step for all citizens of Palmerston North. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, we have our public comment and acknowledge our three speakers. We have recommendations there that public comment be received for information. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'm not going to invite any comment. We will vote, please. Has passed 15 votes for. We're having some trouble getting Councillor Harper to connected. All right, we'll move forward to number 7, which is around the appointment of committees and committee membership. It's on page 9 of your papers. I'll ask our Governance Manager, Hannah White, to speak to that.
morena tātou, good morning everyone. This paper, item 7 on the agenda this morning, is the proposal from our Mayor to set up the committee structure for the 2025 term of council. You'll be aware that the Mayor has certain powers under the Local Government Act, and particularly those are set out in section 41, and that sets out that the role of the Mayor is to provide leadership to the city and to the people of the city, and to that end has the power to establish committees. So this paper is setting out what that looks like, and I'm happy to take any questions, and I expect there may be a few.
Thank you, Hannah. Just before we go to questions, I'd just like to add, as on the, I suppose, the proposer of this report. Look, colleagues, I heard from many of you that you wanted I'll deal with the structure of the committees, a much flatter structure. We've gone big, and we're now going back to a smaller amount of committees. And that was the majority of views that I got from all of you. I appreciate that, and I'm mindful that there is less chairs, and that's obviously because we've got less committees. But I did welcome all of your personal views on that. And as Hannah has said, it is the Mayor's job to propose a structure, so I'm doing that. Just want to talk to the externals as well. They've been around since 2019, and I think as Ben has alluded in public comment, there's nothing new here. The world hasn't fallen in, the sky hasn't fallen in. It's actually been operating pretty well. In fact, if anything, we've walked back a few things in consultation with Rangitane to understand what their views were around the coming term. Arts, culture and heritage, and I think again other speakers have emphasised the word culture. Why would you have a culture committee if you didn't have one of your main partners there? But look, again, I have been accused of, I wouldn't say accused, misrepresented that I've put something out there that's new. I haven't. But I appreciate that there's new people around the table and they may have different views as well. So, on that, I have separated things out so people can have a fair say on what they'd like to do. And you'll see that around the number 3 in terms of an independent member around finance, performance and audit. Again, that's quite a common, well, in fact, it's norm right around the country. In fact, we'd be one of the few, if we didn't want to do that, we'd be one of the few in New Zealand that wouldn't have an independent audit advice. In previous years, we've been really fortunate. We've had an auditor on around the council table, but we haven't got that in more recent times. That was one reason that came up again. But again, I'm open to views from my colleagues on that as well. Where I'm a little bit firmer is I absolutely agree that there does need to be Rangitane voice around the table. Now, some may say, well, we've got Māori wards. But again, it's not Rangitane wards, it's Māori wards. There's a real difference. And I do know that some colleagues probably haven't picked that up. So, please treat this with an open mind. I just want to say, you sign an oath that you represent all the city, not a group. So it's the whole city. And you do also have to come in with an open mind. So you can't be predetermined. You can have views, absolutely. But this is why it's called a debating chamber. We do the debate in here. Not online, it's in here. So please have an open mind about what is discussed in all ways. In terms of the committees, so looking at council, obviously, and that is the overriding organisation that makes the decisions. So the externals aren't to council, they're to a committee. Council decides on everything. It has the right to not accept a committee decision. And that's happened many times. We have a Finance, Performance and Audit Committee. Now, again, I've pulled a few things there together. We have had audit connected into this before, and we've had it separated. I've brought it back in. We've had a community, a resilience, sustainability. Again, they have been separated. We've brought them back in. So they're the monthly committees. They'll meet 9 times a year. The quarterly committees, which will meet 4 times a year, are the one that's had a lot of focus has been the arts, culture and heritage, but also sport and recreation. We have a big sporting community here. We have a lot of facilities and also recreation facilities, parks and reserves. So that's an important one. And then with the quasi-judicial, and again, I think it was one of the speakers said earlier, there's a meeting tomorrow with DLC. So I would like us to get a bit of more understanding of what is happening with hearings and DLC, and there's a process that we need to follow because of the quasi-judicial nature of those committees. The meeting schedule, I'm going to propose that we go to a Wednesday. I do know that a couple of you are looking for a change. It works well. It works well for the organisation. The organisation will make any day work. I strongly recommend you don't go to a weekend. But Wednesdays have worked well for us the last 2.5 terms, I think. So I do propose Wednesdays as our council chamber day. I have signalled that as well. Also, our region has gotten behind that as well. So Manawatu District Council's changed their day on the pretence that we were a Wednesday, and the regional council, I'm sure, will be. I'm meeting with the regional council later in the week. Next week. Their days will. They'll be interested in what we're doing anyway. In terms of external appointments to of councillors to trusts and other steering groups and that, we'll do all of that on the 3rd. So there'll be a paper that comes back to you. We'll share that before that because those are the time commitments for each of you. And look, you've all been really good in the sense that you want to do different things in your interests. So I don't think that will be contentious. It'll be something of who really wants to champion particular groupings or sectors. So I'll leave it at that and open it up for any comments. Sorry, questions of the officers and perhaps myself if there's anything comes my way. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hannah, can I ask, there's 3 questions I want to ask you. Firstly, under the Local Government Act, what are the legal obligations of this council to Māori?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The Local Government Act does set out some obligations on territorial authorities. Probably the section, there are several sections, but probably probably the section that springs to mind is section 81. So a local authority must establish and maintain processes to provide opportunities for Māori to contribute to the decision-making processes of the local authority, and they must consider ways to foster the development of Māori capacity to contribute to the decision-making processes of the local authority. It doesn't set out which ways to do that, but it does require it as a language of must.
Thank you. My second question is, how have these legal obligations been upheld by this council to date?
So Palmerston City Council to date has introduced a Māori ward for this council. That was certainly a decision where that particular section of the Act was considered by the elected council back in 2021. 2021, April 2021, as one way to encourage Māori participation in council decision making. At the time that advice was brought to the council, I cannot speak on behalf of Rangitane o Manawatu, but I did look back to my report on those days, and there was specifically a paragraph where Rangitane had asked me to inform the council that it was their opinion that they wished for those Māori wards to be established, but very clearly stating that they did not see that as representation for Rangitane o Manawatu, but for the wider Māori hapori of Palmerston North. So the expectation was that there would continue to be representation of Rangitane on committees. We also ensure that Māori participation in decision making is encouraged through a variety of other means. For example, at operational level, many members around the table will be aware that we have a group that meets monthly called Te Whiri Kōkō, where matters at operational level are discussed, and there are representatives of Rangitane o Manawatu around that table as well. However, that's not a decision-making table, which is the language of the Act that I referred to earlier.
Thank you, Hannah. And finally, is this a democratic process?
Sorry, could I just hear that question again?
Is this a democratic process?
As I set out earlier, the Mayor does have the powers to appoint their chairs and to create a committee structure, but the power to appoint non-elected members to committee is a power that sits with the local authority, so sits with the council, the elected council. So the elected council has the power to appoint members to committee where they believe that that non-elected members would contribute to the decision-making of those committees, particularly where they have skills, attributes, the language of the Act I had in front of me, skills, attributes and knowledge that would assist to the committee, and those decisions are made by the elected council. And also, as the Mayor alluded to earlier, the way that this committee structure has been set out, there is a very limited delegation to committee. So committee members, obviously a number of which there needs to be a majority decision of that committee, and then that majority decision of that committee then gets recommended to the council itself being the people around this table and Councillor Hapera online, and then as a majority you make a decision. So the council are all elected members. The legislation does not allow for appointed members, independent members to be at council. So based on that, yes, it would be my professional judgment that it is a democratic process.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Kia ora.
Councillor Zabellin.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Hannah. I also did have some democracy questions for you. So just to clarify what you've said, the appointment of external members to committees is enabled under the Local Government Act, specifically clause 31.3 of Schedule 7, because I heard it here.
Yes, yeah, Schedule 7, yeah, there's many schedules.
Yes.
Yeah, Schedule 7, clause 31. I was actually looking quite closely at the language in this particular clause last night. It was intriguing to me. Members of the committee may, but need not be elected members. So actually, the assumption of the Act is that committees would have appointed members, and not only that, that potentially elected members might be in the minority, is the way that that section is actually written.
Yes, thank you. And was the Local Government Act, that piece of legislation, was enacted by a democratic parliamentary process?
As all legislation goes through Parliament, yes.
Thank you. Just also the other piece of legislation that we're working under primarily is the Lagoima Act 1987, and my read of that is in section 2 that dictates appointed members are subject to the same provisions that elected members are working under in terms of access to information and conducting meetings. Is that your understanding of the obligations of an appointed member?
Absolutely, because they would be acting as a part of this organisation, which is bound by the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act.
Thank you. And these decisions that we're doing today are being decided by the full council in the public forum and on the public record?
They are.
Thank you. So I was looking into what sort of constitutes democracy and learning that New Zealand has constitutional principles that determine how democracy is given effect to. Is the legal and statutory reality that there is more to democracy than just who has elected powers and who doesn't?
Yes.
One of those might be transparency and accountability.
Absolutely. I think the previous speaker also referred to processes, for example, like consultations and submissions.
So these appointed members are used as a mechanism to ensure that public officials don't abuse their power, such as independent scrutiny or independent advice in decision-making forums where their expertise might be lacking.
Certainly, if you refer to the advice of the officer at the Office of the Auditor General, who's coming to visit with you next week, that's certainly the case. Their opinion is that having that independence provides for that extra accountability.
Great, thank you. And just touching on the point of delegations, which was raised earlier as well, the government has the right to remove elected members and put in place commissioners, which would act as appointed members with full voting rights. That, under the legislation, is that democratic?
Well, the minister is acting under legislation, and the minister themselves was elected, if we think of democracy in that very short fashion, yes.
Lawfully democratic. Thank you. And to touch on the point that was made, we also have delegations to the CE, to hearings commissioners with decision-making powers, to DLC members with decision-making powers, and those are recorded in the delegations manual.
Yes, so some pieces of legislation give authority directly to members, to appointed members. Some pieces of legislation require the local authority to delegate that power, yes.
Right. And then my final question was about precedent, and that the precedent for these types of recommendations have been in place in this council and many others for numerous years.
Certainly, my time here at Palmerston City Council, there have been appointed members on committees in both the 2019 and 2022 terms.
Great. Thank you, that's all my questions.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Hannah. I'd just like to start by asking around the anticipated cost of any independent member, given we're being asked to make a decision in principle today of whether we do or don't make this delegation. Do we have an estimate of what the cost would be for an appointed member to this Finance, Performance and Audit Committee? I wrote it was around 20,000 last time, but that was only for 3 meetings a year. This will be 9.
So last year, yes, you're correct, there were 3 meetings, but in the previous years there were 4 or 5, it's because it was a quarterly committee, and the independent member to the Risk and Assurance Committee, I'm trying to remember all the names now, was the chair. So certainly the rate of recompense was higher than one would expect of a member. So I wouldn't expect, but I'm looking at the Chief Executive who would be negotiating that kind of contract under commercial sensitivity, that it would be of a similar figure.
Thank you. And for the 2 appointees to the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee, are we anticipating a similar fee structure, a meeting fee, or something different entirely?
In the last term of council, the council agreed to pay a meeting fee of $250 per individual per meeting that they attended. That would be a decision of the council when we brought the appointments of the individuals to you as to how you would like to do that.
Thank you. A question perhaps more to yourself as the Mayor. I know Rangitaneo Manawatu haven't presented to us today on their views on this, so we're sort of being led in this conversation through your conversations with iwi. So I was just wondering if you could share with us, I know they've gone back and forward on whether they want a Rangitaneo Manawatu committee or appointed members to a committee. Where have those conversations landed with you, Mr Mayor?
Well, they want a voice. They do want a voice around the table. Now, I can't speak for Rangitane other than saying that they do want to be in the conversation. So I'll just leave it as simple as that. I realise we've got people in the gallery, and I don't want to overstep my remarks, other than to say that they want a voice around the table, and in the same way, advice is given in an audit. We're getting some cultural advice.
Thank you. And so just noting and appreciating Rangitaneo Manawatu's capacity constraints in the last term with the Rangitaneo Manawatu Committee, have they expressed that they would have capacity and interest to be involved in a committee of this size and structure, given it would be more, obviously the terms of reference
It's virtually the same, so I'd say, I'm saying they would definitely be able to do something, yes.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you. I think my question will probably follow on quite nicely, because in your explanation, Mr Mayor, of your committee structure for this term, we didn't hear about the Rangitaneo Manawatu Committee from last term and what your thinking was in amalgamating that into the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee. I wonder if you would speak to your thinking on that for us, please.
Yeah, so obviously the main purpose of work on the Rangitane Committee last term was an overview of what work was happening within council and Rangitane's involvement, whether that be environmental, infrastructure, events, all sorts of different things. A lot of that does happen at an operational level, but there was an aspect of reporting back up that would continue into the arts, culture and heritage. The main bulk of work was around the cultural centre at Te Matapoto at Anzac Park, and as that is nearing a decision point, that would fall, either it doesn't happen if it doesn't reach its funding envelope, or it goes ahead and it will go into a CCO, and that would report to Arts, Culture and Heritage.
And so the Rangitaneo Manawatu Committee of last term was very restricted in its membership. We had quite a different structure to our proposal in terms of this. What do you see as the benefits of bringing particularly that discussion about Te Matapoto into an ordinary committee structure?
Oh, well, it means everybody has a voice around the table too, whereas there was a limited membership to the last, and rightly so, because there was it was a co-chaired committee with equal members on both sides. This really brings the voice of Rangitane in, but it has the whole, any council member can attend it, and everyone has voting rights.
Thank you. No further questions.
Councillor Kuru.
This is for you, Mr Mayor. Have you found that including mana whenua in council committees reduces potential legal risk and litigation costs, particularly in relation to heritage protection, wahitapu and te tiriti o Waitangi obligations?
Geez, I'm becoming a lawyer. Look, my knowledge, and you do have to have a little bit of legal expertise in this role, is you put yourself up to a judicial review if you don't follow the legislation. And obviously, under the Act, we have to give effect to the voice of Māori in decision making. So this is my personal opinion. If you don't allow that voice in some capacity, then you open yourself potentially up to a judicial review. And I think there's been case law around the country in that.
Does having mana whenua representation help prevent project delays or costly redesigns by enabling early identification of culturally sensitive issues during planning and development?
I might just either give that to the CE or one of the GMs in planning here.
Yeah, sure, Mr Mayor. Certainly find that works really effectively through our operational committee Te Whiri Kōkō, where Rangitanei providing input into the projects that are about to begin or are in train that have already been budgeted and planned for.
And last one, sorry. Have you seen projects benefit from increased funding or partnerships such as government grants, iwi collaborations or philanthropic support where Māori perspectives and values are integrated from the outset?
I'll default to the CE or the GM, but if I could just add, one project that has had true input has been the new Wyndham Hotel, and that has had good engagement early on, which has led to a better outcome, and that is $50 million of private investment.
Yes, through Mr Mayor. It does generally depend on the type of project or the project that you do have in front of you, but generally, funders do like to see a partnership arrangement in place, either with community, iwi, private sector in some cases, and that as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure if this is for Hannah or for you, but could someone outline what our obligations are under the kawanata that we signed with Rangitanei?
I can do that if you like.
Okay, thank you.
I did make sure I brought it with me, or a part of it that was relevant. So the Kawanata agreement with Rangitana o Manawatu under its capacity contribution expectation separates a series of pieces of work, but in input into governance and representation, that particular program, the agreement is establishment and ongoing participation into the co-management of Te Motua, Portua, Anzac Cliffs Reserve, including representation on any decision-making body.
Sorry, representation on any decision-making body. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just referring to page 14 of our agenda, clause 6.6, the Kawanata Partnership Agreement between Palmerston North Council and Rangatane, is that the document, the MOU that was sent out to us on Monday?
Yes.
Okay. And in clause 9.3 of that document, it talks about that there'll be a review of that agreement undertaken involving all parties every 3 years, aligned with the review of Council's long-term plan. I note that it was signed in 2019. Did that review happen in 2022? Or during the has it happened since 2019?
I'll pass that over maybe to the GM of Strategic Planning.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So there has been 2 extensions to the original partnership agreement since it was signed in 2019. So the intent is that the most recent extension finishes at the end of this financial year, at which point there would need to be a formal review of the partnership agreement.
Thank you. So when those extensions have happened, has the document effectively continued in its form that was signed in August of 2019?
That's correct. The extensions have largely addressed the funding that supports the partnership agreement through funding that's been confirmed by the council through the respective LTPs.
Okay, and is it the intention then to review that document more fully at the end of this financial year, or as a... Sorry, thanks,
That would be, a decision for this council to have a conversation about prior to any, further extension or renewal of that partnership agreement. Those conversations are typically ones that occur well alongside the review of the LTP, which will be kicking off sort of later this year, early next year.
Thank you. On page 8 of that document, number 3, it talks about an invitation to Rangatane to have attendance as appropriate to the iwi at council committee meetings or hearings to present Rangatane views. Am I understanding that correctly, that there is an open invitation in that MOU at any time for Rangatane to come to any committee and express their view on any item in any committee agenda? Is that correct?
As I understand that, that's no different to any member of the public who's able to come and present to a committee and through public comment or request through a deputation.
Okay, thanks. I'll leave it there.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Could we please have some comment as to why we are singling out one ethnic group for representation on a heritage committee if we're going to have that, rather than ignoring all other ethnic groups in our community?
The suggestion is that Rangitane o Manawatu, as mana whenua of this rohe, are the group that would be there to be represented. Okay. Did I understand your question, Councillor Fitzgerald?
All right. No other questions? Okay. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, colleagues, we have recommendations to council. I'm quite happy to take them individually. That we, council note the establishment of the committees made by the Mayor, Table 1, under section 41A of the LGA. 2, that council note the chairperson appointments made by the Mayor to the committees, Table 1, again under the LGA. The council adopt the delegations manual 23 part 4, replacement delegations to committee, attachment 1, approving the terms of reference and delegations to the committees, including the Mayor's recommendations for deputy chairs, elected members committee membership. B, independent member of Finance, Performance and Audit Committee. C, up to rangitane representatives on the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee. 4, that Council agree the following change to delegation 3.1.6, assignment of commissioners, that legal counsel in liaison with the GM of regulatory, manager of planning services and team leader of planning services and the principal planner of strategic planning with input from the chair and or deputy chair of the hearings committee may assign hearing commissioners to conduct, consider and determine any matter that requires a hearing or related decision under the following acts, the RMA and the Dog Control Act. 5, that Council adopt the Standing Orders 2023 replacement, clauses 1.1 scope in general and 1.5.3 extension for the rights to vote, attachment 2, and number 6, that Council note the appointment of independent members, if required, will be considered at a later date. So look, I'm happy to move the entire lot, but we can take them separately, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, and I'll open it up for any comments. Other than I will just start with, again, colleagues, understand there are some views around the table and I appreciate that. I just want to come back to the overriding principle here. I haven't changed anything. I've put the general process of what we've been doing over the last 6 years, which has stood us pretty well. We've coped pretty well in quite a trying environment, not only politically, but with socially and definitely economically. We haven't talked a lot about the audit, but the Office of the Auditor General, which is our auditor, gives us strong advice that we should have somebody around the table. Now, I've pulled that back from a chair to a member, and that member, I think, gives us some sound advice around audit, around health and safety, around risk. And I just don't think it's wise to try and save a couple of dollars when you need that real specialist advice. With rangitane, we'd be making a major shift if we excluded them. So I'll just leave that with you. But again, I respect everybody's rights and votes around the table. I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. A big thank you also to Ben Schmidt and also John Hornblow for your presentation. Ngā mihi ki a koutou. Today I rise not to challenge the rules, but it's good to hear that the Governance Manager had reinforced the notion that the rules that we currently operate in support these recommendations. But I'm here to uphold the principles that support those rules: fairness, consistency, and shared responsibility. These are the foundations of good governance. And when we apply them unevenly, we risk eroding the very trust our communities place in us. Let me be clear. If the rule is that only elected members may sit on council committees, then that rule should apply, must apply, to all of them, all unelected individuals equally. No exceptions of some, no exclusions of others. Anything less is not a matter of process, it becomes a matter of bias. Fairness. If we uphold the principle that only elected members sit on this committee, then we must apply to all unelected individuals equally. Responsibility. Elected members are entrusted with representing all constituents. If they lack expertise, they must seek guidance. And as we heard from our previous Deputy Mayor and someone very highly regarded in the community, John Hornblow, there is strong evidence to show that collaboration and cooperation make for better decision making and the expertise that people bring to the table. None of us sitting around here are experts on everything, but we do need to make the best decisions for our city. Consistency. What is good for one group must be good for all. Either we consistently allow outside expertise, or we consistently rely solely on elected members. Fairness cannot be selective. Exposing the contradiction, if Māori committee members are singled out, this is no longer just a procedural debate. It becomes a matter of fairness, inclusion, and democratic integrity. Focusing on one group undermines the principle that all elected members share responsibility and representation. A committee cannot claim legitimacy if it endorses rules selectively. As Moana Jackson reminded us once, many years ago, fairness in this country has always been defined by those who have the power to be fair. And that's not fairness at all. Let's not repeat the mistake. Let's uphold fairness together through consistency, courage, and collective leadership. That's how we honour Te Tiriti. That's how we honour what currently is a legal requirement. That's how we serve our city. And that's how we build a council worthy of trust. Kia ora.
Councillor Wood.
This is an unfortunate way to start the term, and I think we all feel that, because clearly there is division around the table on the appointment of unelected members, and that means we have to start this term with a rather unpleasant debate. So I'm going to start with where I agree with the Deputy Mayor, is that we absolutely should be morally consistent when it comes to the appointment of unelected members, and I don't think any member around this table isn't being. I will be voting against B and C for the same rationale, that I do not believe in distorting the proportionality of the elected council, regardless of ethnicity. If the Mayor had proposed that we appoint 2 members of the Turbos to the Sports and Recreation Committee, because they're our largest sport, I would be opposed to that equally. If the Mayor had proposed that we appoint a representative from the region and the globe as our major cultural centres, the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee, I would be opposed to that equally for the same reasons. And so some members in our community want to make this about race. That is not where I, or I don't believe any of my colleagues, are coming from. This is about unelected appointments to council tables. I will clarify the rules, when the Deputy Mayor said the rules support these recommendations, that is not true. The rules allow these recommendations, and that is fair. And I don't deny that similar things have been done in the past. I wasn't around the council table in 2019, so I can't talk to that process, but this is a significant departure from what we did in 2022 to 2025, and I'll outline why. The Office of the Auditor General says, and I quote, while not mandatory, audit and risk committees are regarded as essential for managing risk and achieving sound governance. And if the Mayor wanted to propose today that we establish an audit and risk committee and had one unappointed representative on that committee, based on the advice of the Auditor General, like we did last term, I would support that. But this is a significant extension of what we did in the last term. We are combining economic growth and all of their terms of reference, strategy and finance and all of their terms of reference, and audit and risk and all of their terms of reference. And no councillor could seriously suggest that is not a significant extension of the purview and the influence and the role that an unelected member would have there. We go from having 3 or 4 meetings a year to 9 meetings a year. We go from being focused just on audit and risk to being focused on almost the entire core business of council. And that is unacceptable in my view, and that is significantly different to what we had for the last 3 years. When it comes to the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee, if the Mayor wanted to propose today that we establish a Rangitānei Manatū Committee to deal specifically with Te Motua Potua and the CCO that would be established, I would support that just as I did last term, because that is a very limited purview that deals with matters in relation to our relationship with iwi. What is being proposed? In the last term, our Rangitānei representatives didn't need to read the Regent's financial statements, to go through the Te Manawa reports, to go through the Globe's report, all of the work that was done by the Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee. And so by combining 2 committees together, that is where the objection is coming from, because that is a significant increase in the power and authority of unelected members. And what does that do? That means that any recommendation to council that has passed with a less than 3 vote majority on that committee will be subject to significant relitigation, because it will need to all be redebated back at the council table. Any decision made within the delegation of that committee with a less than 3 vote majority can be challenged by an elected member through a notice of motion back to the council table. Because when you've got 18 people able to vote in a committee, but only a council of 16, you run the risk of decisions that don't reflect the will of the elected representatives of the city. And so that will be very frustrating, and that will be very time-consuming, and that will be very annoying for elected members. And I'll make the commitment to you today that that is not just a risk, but that is a promise. If we go ahead with this proposal, I will bring a notice of motion on every single item that passes in that committee with a less than 3 vote majority to the council table to be redebated by elected members of our community where it should sit.
Sorry, point of order, councillor, there's not 18 on arts, culture and heritage.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I said 18 with voting rights, as all members of the council have
But
voting
no,
rights on that committee.
there's not 18.
I'll take your point. There will be as many members of that committee as there are, but there would be
Yep,
16
thank you.
members of
There's
the
not
council.
18.
There will be 16 members of the council allowed to vote on that committee, plus 2 unelected
So,
representatives.
councillor, there's not 18 proposed on that committee.
Am I allowed to vote on that committee, Mr Mayor, as a non-member?
Yes, you are, but you've made a statement that is misleading.
All right, well, I'll withdraw if some members felt that was misleading. But the point I'm making is that there will be up to 18 votes at that committee at some times if all members of the council choose to attend that committee meeting and vote, as our standing orders allow. So, where does that leave us? Well, I don't think the suggestion that we don't have the right voices around our council table, therefore we have to supplement at a committee level, is fair or respectful or true of the members we have. We've got an excellent mix of elected members. We've just had the Māori ward referendum passed to retain Māori representation around the council table, and whether you supported that or not, that is the fact. And so that guarantees Māori representation, Māori values, and a Māori worldview in council decisions and decision making. And that is right. This is very unfortunate, this whole debate. And I hope if it fails, we can reconsider the way in which we approach these kind of debates, the way in which we structure our committees, and the way in which we have this discussion. My objection is to distorting the proportionality of council, leading to significant increases in time spent relitigating at the council table and not presenting the elected will of the people. So I will not support either of the recommendations or any other recommendations for non-elected members based on that rationale.
Councillor Ballin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are a few points where I agree with you, particularly that this is a really unfortunate way to start the term. I particularly, in speaking to the appointments, just wanted to object to the very strong, incorrect, and in some cases defamatory statements that have been made on social media, suggesting that these lawful and well-established government practices amount to a rejection of democracy. What a shame to reduce this chamber's work to culture war slogans and clickbait. It's really important that we ground this discussion in the constitutional reality that we have to work within, rather than a personal interpretation or ideology of how we each think democracy should work. We have to deal in legal realities. These appointments are permissible under the Local Government Act. They're encouraged as best practice by the Auditor General, and they are common practice across councils throughout New Zealand, including ours. It's not this radical aberration of democracy that it has been painted to be. They just serve a very simple purpose, which is to provide independent oversight, expertise, and ensuring checks and balances on our elected members, and that we have the expertise that we need. That's not a threat to democracy, it's one of the inbuilt mechanisms in our legislative framework to ensure that it's upheld. So the real question shouldn't be, is this democratic or not? Because it is. The real question is whether these appointments are useful and appropriate in this context, and that's where I have some sympathy for your arguments. Regarding the independent finance and audit expert, our structure has changed, and we no longer have a dedicated audit and risk committee, and the staff responsibilities in that area have shifted too. So if we can ensure that an independent member is ring-fenced in their responsibilities to only be focusing on the risk, audit and performance aspects of that committee, then I'm comfortable with that. But if we can't, then I do believe that this council has sufficient capability to function without that kind of appointment if we chose to. But as for our kawinata, That's an agreement that we signed, and that's where our commitment gets tested. If a covenant applies only when it suits, then it's just words on a page. And if it falls over at the first test, then it's not worth the paper it's written on. Like colonialism today looks like outraged ideology with a healthy dose of victim mentality. And sure, dishonouring agreements is a well-documented part of our shared heritage, but like, can't we be better than that? Can't we uphold the agreements that we've made not that long ago? By both threatening and promising relitigation for what are quite actually minor delegations, this is going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're going to enact the doom that you've threatened us with. But I will note that those standing most staunchly against mana whenua participation have also opposed Māori representation in other forms while repeatedly declining the opportunities that we've had to learn and to engage and to build better understanding so that we can better represent those people that you would seek to disempower. That in itself proves that the sufficiency argument is false. Real leaders spread democracy, they don't gatekeep it. So we have a choice today to honour our partnership agreement that we've signed or to dishonour it. Thank you.
Councillor McAllard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just like to add my voice to the debate. I'll be voting in favour of many of the recommendations before us, except 3B, C, and C. And the reasons why I won't be voting for 3B and item 3B and C are simply because I think by doing so and having unelected personnel on council committees is a serious way of undermining local democracy. Real leaders protect democracy. Real leaders protect local democracy, not undermine it. And by having people without the mandate that's been given to us by the community, sitting around this table making decisions that are to do with financial considerations, economic considerations, people who have not been elected, who have not earned the trust of the community, is a serious way of undermining local democracy because they are not accountable to residents. I am accountable to residents because they voted for me to be here, and they can vote me out if they don't like the way I decide to vote, and they can vote me in if they like the way I've decided to vote. This is a bad way to do things. The mayor has alluded to earlier on by saying that this is nothing new and we've done it before. But we've actually, considerably, we've actually increased the scope of these committees. I can support, like Councillor Wood said earlier on, supporting Rangitane committee here and discuss issues regarding Te Motupotu law, any issues that are important to Rangitane. I will support it, put it here before us, and I will support it. But to say that this is nothing different and we've done it previously is misleading as well, in my opinion. Because the ambit or the jurisdiction of these committees have significantly increased, and power has been significantly increased. And to have unelected personnel here making such significant decision on budgetary consideration is misleading at best, and at the same time undermines local democracy. Now, I'll be the first one to say here that I supported Maori wards, and I voted for it, and I campaigned for it. But the thing is, here's the thing. I can support Maori wards, but it does not mean that I'm going to support having iwi representatives with voting rights on this particular table. I can support iwi representatives here as observers or providing advisory support to committees as well. There are many other ways to get around it, but to give voting rights for me personally undermines local democracy to the core. We have 2 elected Maori wards representatives here. This is the reason why we brought Maori wards, to speak on Maori issues, to bring into consideration the views of Maori or the Maori worldview into this council chamber. This is the reason why I voted for Maori wards to come here in the first place in 2021 when we discussed, or 2022 when we discussed these issues. It's called advocacy. It's called representation. We have 2 sitting Maori wards councillors here who can source out and get feedback from Rangitane and feed that into council decision making. It's called advocacy and representation. On that basis, I will not be voting for item 3BC. Yes, it's true we can still decide these issues at the council committee. But what we're not taking into consideration is the time or the fact that we are going to repeatedly relitigate these matters passed in some of these committees to ensure that it reflects the will of elected members. That's what we're not taking into consideration. So on the basis of that argument, I'll be voting against recommendation 3B and 3C. And for the same reasons that have been alluded earlier on, even by Councillor Wood, I'll be voting against it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for weighing in on this one. Agree, this is not a comfortable place to start the triennium, but it's the start of every triennium is the same. We go through this process of establishing committees for the last 2 trienniums. That's meant including discussing whether we'd have appointed members, and then we get onto the even more fraught debate of who gets paid what. So we always start in difficult space. That's just part of the course, and maybe we can aspire to better, more productive debates going after we've got these ones out of the way. Colleagues, you'll know that I am not naturally in favour of appointed members, and I've talked to many of you about that. I'm grateful to the Mayor for his clear proposal that he put up, and also for his willingness to engage in discussion with me, certainly, around his thinking there and what we were trying to achieve. And that has been something of a journey over the last couple of weeks as we've all engaged in this space. And I absolutely agree with my colleague here. We have all worked very hard to earn our space around this table. None of us take that lightly. The responsibility to act on behalf of our community and to bring those voices into this chamber. And we've all taken our oath just last week that we'll act on behalf of the whole community, not just the bits of it that we think voted for us. I found the question and answers very helpful today, particularly around the Kawanata agreement. And that really is something that I'm bringing into this decision-making process now. I think we got to the heart of this. This is absolutely a democratic process, that we're absolutely enabled to make these decisions, that this is an appropriate conversation for us to be having. The space that we're stepping into is identifying whether there are gaps of skills and knowledge versus the impact of having those people around the table. And for me, we meet that bar in one of those categories and we do not meet it in another. So I might find myself in a slightly different position to some others of being not supportive at this stage of the appointment to the Finance Committee for many of the reasons that have already been outlined. I don't see that that meets the threshold for a skills and knowledge gap compared to the scale of the work of that committee. Whereas with the appointments to Arts, Culture and Heritage, which I hope to have the privilege of leading, should this vote go through, I do see that as an opportunity there where we have skills and knowledge that can be brought in. I wasn't very happy with how the impact of the Rangitaneo Manawatu committee structure in the last term. I felt that that marginalised a whole section of our decision making and didn't enable us fully as elected members to engage in that, because so many of the decisions were delegated. Not many of them actually came through council for our voting, and that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing change in this term of council, that decisions, particularly around Te Motu Apotoa, where we know there's significant community interest, deserve the full consideration of all of us. And I would hope, maybe not that we'd have 18 people around the table, but I would hope that there'd be significant interest in the work of that committee, and elected members would be very welcome to join. And as to Councillor Wood's promise to bring those decisions to council, should they be close, well, absolutely, that's not re-litigation. It annoys me that we call it re-litigation. That's just the process that we have for confirming the decisions that are made. If they're close, absolutely, let's talk about it at council. There is nothing to be afraid of there, apart from possibly the workload. So, but we've all committed to the workload of council. So I don't think anybody is going to be voting to say they don't want to do the job that they were appointed to do. It's just our process. And as to people saying, and I'm a little bit cross here, as to people saying, if it was just the Audit and Risk Committee, I would support it. If it was just the Rangatane or Manawatu Committee, I would support it. I actually don't believe that, because the members who've said that have every opportunity to move that as an amendment, and they have not done so. If you believed it, you might move it. I see William going for his pen.
I'll second it.
But they haven't done that. So for me, that does say something. What you think it says might be up to you, and I challenge my writing friends to actually put that on the table if that's what they genuinely believe, but at the moment that's not there. I don't buy that this distorts the proportionality of council. I buy that it enables us to make better decisions. I've said many times through this journey on council, we go further, faster with friends.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and colleagues. Firstly, to say I appreciate the Mayor's overall proposal. The reality is that in the last term, there was a sense that we had a few too many committees, that there was a bit of inefficiency in the structure. It would have been the easiest thing for a continuing mayor to just say, suck it up, we're just going to keep going with the structure we've done. But the mayor actually took that feedback on board, and he crafted a proposal that he's brought to us today, and now it feels like he and we and Rangatane are getting punished for that effort. And I'd say that's, again, a most unfortunate start to the day and to the term. In my view, council appointments to committees do not undermine democracy, they fulfill it. The election was a council election. It wasn't a committee's election. It was a council election. It put 16 of us around the table. And one of our first jobs is then to make and establish appointments, which is what we're trying to do today. Very normal practice right through government. There's an appointment process around the Governor General right on through. So there's absolutely nothing in today's papers, as has been demonstrated in the response to questions. There's absolutely nothing in our papers today, nothing proposed, that would undermine or is inconsistent with democracy. The first and only real consideration around B and C is there merit in those appointments, and do they add sufficient value or do they not? And specifically on the Rangatane side of that, I'd say there's absolutely every evidence that they do provide incredible value. You look at 150 years of relationship with Rangatane, cooperation, manakitanga that has happened to give rise to this opportunity to continue that. The practical benefits, many of which have been visited in terms of, yes, artistic expression and cultural, but as well inbound investment, city growth, less legal costs, more efficiency in planning through and through. There is every practical reason to continue to strengthen that relationship and build it in a way that is in both parties' interests. There's a continuity argument. Rangatane reps have been here for multiple terms, yes, in slightly different configurations, and I acknowledge this is, again, another slightly different configuration, but it is not a profound change as some have tried to portray it. There's the argument around fit, and I particularly appreciate John Hornblow, former deputy mayor, coming in and asking us a very simple question. How could you have a culture and heritage committee in a treaty-based nation without Rangatane's voice there? There's so many dimensions there, from our natural heritage right through to the Maori Battalion Hall and more. And finally, there is public desire. We've just had a really substantial public debate around whether or not Maori voice should be incorporated into council, and the answer in the majority is yes. And I'd also thank the many members of the public who've been filling our inboxes and who've come today to remind us of that. There's only 4 reasons really that I've heard against it, Mr. Mayor. The first is somehow that it's anti-democratic. I find that an incredibly contorted argument. There's just no legitimate grounds to claim that this is in any way undemocratic. Appointments, where merited, fulfill democracy. The second, Councillor Fitzgerald's question around trying to paint this up as something around an ethnic group is actually quite beyond belief. another quite twisted argument. This is only about the treaty and giving effect to our legislative role as council. They're clearly accountable, and there's clearly, if anything, an extraordinarily minor cost argument to be made around this. So, in the whole, there is everything to gain in making these appointments, and there is a tremendous amount to lose by rejecting them. So please do vote to support moderate representation in this way through the iwi appointments to arts, culture, and heritage. Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just speaking firstly to the paper as a whole. I'm really supportive of what the Mayor has proposed in terms of a simpler structure to committees, streamlining that in a way that will make a lot of information come to us in a more timely way. And I also really support the Mayor's choice of chairs, those four people that he has put forward. I think my colleagues, they're a very good choice, very capable, and I have great confidence in them chairing those committees extremely well. In terms of the issue which appears to have become the debate for this paper, in terms of the proposal to have some independent members on two of the committees, I acknowledge that our legal framework gives us the opportunity to choose whether we do that or not. That's clear from what's been articulated today. In reflecting in the last 9 years, but particularly the last 6 years, where I've participated on the Rangatane o Manawatu committee, and I just want to also firstly acknowledge the importance of our partnership with Rangatane, and I think it's a very strong relationship. My reflections of that relationship is that often the most valuable engagement that I've observed that we have with Rangatane are actually in the more informal settings, when we have a partnership meeting, where we hear what they really think. In terms of their participation at committees, I think it would be useful to perhaps have a conversation with Rangatane to reflect on how beneficial that's been to them, reflect on whether that's been an appropriate format. I'm disappointed to come today to have, the decisions that we need to make today without a really good understanding of how they would like their engagement with council to look. We have some second-hand information from the Mayor that they want to voice around the table, and certainly in looking at the kawanata and reading through that document, recognising that we haven't had a real review of that since 2019, which predates Māori wards, and reading through that document made me realise that there's some things that really do need to be refreshed in that document. And certainly we heard from the officer that was rolled over a couple of times, but certainly not with what I understood as input from councillors, elected members, and I wasn't aware of what the input from the Rangatane looked like in terms of rolling over that. So I do really look forward to that being reviewed next year, and I hope that there will be some meaningful engagement with Rangatane about what that should look like going forward. I have got some reservations about the appointments on both committees. Councillor Barrett mentioned before about wanting Māori representation on the Culture, Heritage and Arts, Culture and Heritage Committee. I'm really pleased to see the inclusion of both Māori ward councillors in the terms of reference for that committee, and I've got a lot of confidence at the skills and expertise that they will bring to the table. I also am really comfortable in the kawanata, the open invitation to Rangatane to come at any time and have input into any discussion in any topic, in any committee around our table. At this point of time, I won't be supporting B or C. In terms of the integrity of our democratic process, I know it's legal for us to appoint, but we also stand here to represent the interests of our community. And it's really clear that it's quite divided, actually, to be quite honest, looking at who's here today, supporting, some supporting and others not supporting. And that will be the reflection, I know, of our broader community. But I think of the 24 people that stood for council who weren't successful, who invested much time and effort into going through a really rigorous process to try and have a place at this table. So it's something I don't take lightly. And our community, those people who have missed out by a narrow margin, I can imagine may be quite put out to feel that there are other peoples that have been appointed to committees when perhaps they would have really liked to be around this table and haven't, and aren't here due to the democratic process and only having 16 elected representatives.
Thank you, Councillor. We're time's up. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Can I just
No,
add?
you've actually gone quite a bit over, so I've given you plenty of rope. Thank you. Councillor Kiru.
Kia ora. So just listening around the table, I'm thinking, why is it important to have mana whenua at the table? And from what I can hear, it is more important than ever to have mana whenua at the committee table. What I'm hearing is, I want to be your friend and I like you, but you don't get to have a say on things that affect you and your land. So you're actually not important. I want to be your friend, but we don't really care what you've got to say. Mana whenua have much value to add. I am an elected member from the Māori ward. I am not rangitane, and I am not a specialist in rangitane culture and heritage. I could not sit there at the table and say I represent them and this is what they should do, which is absolutely the most important, vital thing about what I'm going to say. I'm a specialist in other areas. I believe in having specialists in the area of finance and Māori. Why are we so fearful of Māori or rangitane having a say about what goes on in Palmerston North? Why are we fearful? My opinion is to get it right from the onset. So if we get it right at the beginning, it will continue to be right throughout the whole process. If it takes a little bit longer, why not? If we have to bring it back to council, we get to vote on it anyway. So what is really horrible about having them sit at the table? Including mana whenua on committees saves money, it reduces the risk of litigation, it prevents delays, it attracts funding and protects the council. Their presence is not just culturally essential, it is financially and legally prudent. Ngā mihi.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you. I will be voting against both points B and C, and I'm quite sad to see some try and make this a race war when I'm opposing both motions for the same reasons. Having unelected members on council committees is something I believe that is undemocratic and something that many in our community do not want. Iwi should be consulted and involved in decisions that affect them, but they should be done in the same way that we consult other members of our community and not with voting rights. I also make no apology for bringing this issue to the attention of our community, and having community input into decisions like this is something that's very important. I'll keep this rather brief because Councillors Wood and Naylor have basically rehashed the points that I would otherwise make, so I'm not going to sit here and say the same thing, but otherwise I will not be supporting these motions. But I'm happy to look at potentially restructuring these committees to have something that's more appropriate for this. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the new proposed committee structure. Excuse me, I'm just battling past hay fever. A lot of thoughts got into it. I think Councillor Barrett outlined that from the start. I wanted to acknowledge what's been proposed overall rather than getting into a specific point early on in the debate. So I want to commend you. It's a more efficient, effective way, I believe, of doing business. And so I'm very supportive of the structure. What we're coming down to is the idea, which is unfortunately created a great civic engagement, but unfortunately a win-lose situation and polarising and dividing a key situation important issue for us. Can I say that I'll be supporting the recommendations before us for these reasons? And I understand where others are coming from that are opposing the view, because I once had a view similar to you. But here's what I come to understand and now value and appreciate dearly, and is these things. One is not to underweight that it is lawful. Local Government Act 2002, it's under Section 7, allows for appointment. So that is allowable, we can have that scope. One that Councillor Bowen's mentioned around the appointment to the Finance, Performance and Audit Committee. Let me say this, I'm actually see there is value of the appointment, and I've appreciated the external leadership in that role in the past, particularly around the audit and risk functions. And I'd appreciate that in this coming term, but I won't die in a ditch on that one. Just so I'm clear, I think there's a differentiation on putting iwi representation into the arts, culture and heritage. And here's why. I think there was a date noted in New Zealand's pathway to independence, but I actually recognise key events in the whole history of New Zealand's pathway to independence, and it didn't start in 1864. It happened well before that, and we have founding documents that hold iwi as tangata whenua as a special, important, enduring position in our nation, and that won't change. And we have a duty to honour that partnership. That's one of the responsibilities we come into office to do. And so is to a duty of honour to the partnership and to also protect Māori interests. And we have subsequent documents that have committed a voice around key issues that are now forming part of that terms of reference. And I find that is a very effective way of building relationship. Let's go into a Palmerston North's context, and do you know we have a marble statue commemorating Te Pētiti Awi for his loyalty to the Crown and to his friendship to the early settlers of our city. And it says this, it says, Kua kaupapa e au te aroha, mā koutou e whakaote. We hear it regularly. That says, I have laid the foundations of friendship or of love for us to come and bring to completion. If that's not a cry of looking forward, of wanting us to pathway this together, tangata whenua and us as other treaty partners, there'll be tears in heaven at the moment of us arguing about this, creating division. It's to bring to completion the foundation of friendship and the foundation of love, and that is important for this whenua. And so I've got a strong conviction that we have a duty of honour, we have a responsibility, and I'm not taking it lightly. I did mention, I take your point, Councillor Wood, around the numbers around committees. I think 18 does sound very high. I think 16 is probably at a maximum limit I'd ever want to go to with a decision-making body. But I think the Mayor's made the fair point, the membership sits at 12 with those two appointments, and I'm comfortable with that. And with a more, I guess, in the new committee structure, it doesn't necessarily require us all to attend every meeting. There's never actually been that expectation, and I acknowledge that we've been well attended in the last term of council, and the committee stats prove that. But I'm very comfortable with what's being proposed and stand by what I've said today. It comes down to, I guess, clarity and not the conflict. And I'm happy to close on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll just tautoko Councillor Dennison's speech and a number of my other colleagues. It won't be any surprise to you that I fully support the appointment of Rangatani reps on committees. That was my position last time we voted on it and the time before. What does come as a surprise to me is that last time we voted on this, with the exception of the two new councillors, every other person who was around the table voted in favour. Now, some have tried to say, well, it was a different committee setup and this is different, but I don't think it is different. And I've been puzzling over the last few days as to why this change in position, Why are people getting agitated now about appointed Māori reps, appointed iwi reps rather, to committees? And the only thing I can come up with really is that it's a challenge to the Mayor's authority. Because actually the Local Government Act gives the Mayor the power to set up committees and to organise the structure of the council. And it seems to me that some people, perhaps, are not comfortable with that. They want to be the ones to do that. They want to be the ones to say how the committee should be set up and who should be on them. And ultimately, I think it's important to understand, whether you stood for mayor or not, and I certainly didn't, I've no desire to be mayor, it's important to understand that there are some responsibilities of the mayor, and one of them is in leadership, and it's around committee structure. So that's the only real reason I can think of as to why this challenge will be coming up now. So people in their positions are being, I think, quite inconsistent. And I think as a council, we have consistently, for many, many terms, supported Māori and iwi engagement, and we should continue to do that. We have legal and contractual obligations to do so. Legal obligations that come to us in the Local Government Act to provide opportunities for Māori to contribute to decision making, and our own kawanata that says we have promised to give representation on any decision-making body relative to Te Motua Poutua, to Rangitane. So we ourselves have signed up for this, and it would be quite the wrong decision at this point to say we're not going to honour those commitments that we've made, and we're not going to honour the legal obligations that are upon us. In terms of the confusion, I think, in some people's minds between Māori ward councillors and Rangitane, there's no necessity for Māori ward councillors even to be Māori, actually, let alone to be representing iwi. So those two things are not the same. And when people are saying, well, we don't really know what Rangitane want, I think we do know because it's in the kawanata. It was very, very clear what Rangitane want. And they haven't come to us and said, oh, we've changed our minds, actually. We don't want representation in decision-making bodies. So I don't think we can advance the argument that we don't know what Rangitane want. We do know what they want. We absolutely do. I think that the opinion that Councillor Kuru put forward is one that I had written down, which is, what are you afraid of? What are you actually afraid of? We're talking about 2 iwi representatives on a committee. They would be vastly outvoted by everybody else on the committee. And even if it came to a close vote and one of those votes was significant, the decision would go up to council where there would be no iwi representation, and council would be able to make a different decision if it's so pleased. So I don't see that there's anything to be concerned about here or anything to be afraid of. And I really dislike I feel, affront to the mana of Rangitane that this is, to be having to put this up first meeting. I do hope that this isn't going to be the tone of things to come. But if it is, I promise you I'll be standing up at every occasion where this comes up, and I'll be saying that this is not the right thing to do. We should be honouring the legal, moral and contractual obligations that we have to iwi, to the Indigenous people of this country, in which I only have a place because of the treaty. So, I mean, I just don't know what else to say to you.
All right, thank you, colleagues. That was good. Look, there's no two ways about it. We've got to vote on this. We could kick the can down the road and have the same debate probably in 2 weeks. So, hence, I've brought it forward. It's on the screen for you here. Look, I'd have to say, and I think I just want to say to Councillor Dennison and Councillor Johnson, thank you. You've summed up things very, very well. But look, there has been a couple of comments around. I feel really bad that we are having this conversation about rangitane. We're dumbing down some of the reasons we're here. They definitely want a voice around the table, as Councillor Johnson said, to say, let's go and have another chat to them, and it's been done second hand through the Mayor. Well, that is my role too. I mean, and if you think I'm being dishonest or I'm not reflecting that right, then you know who you can go and talk to. I think you'll get probably a firmer answer than what I'm giving you. So they definitely want a voice. Some have said, look, you know, the community needs input. This is where we're elected and the community are here. This is the debating chamber where we have this conversation. And it should be about unity and advice. And look, you can have diversity and you have differing views. I mean, I'm a centre-right values person, but I'm absolutely in the space of getting the right advice and respecting rangitane. We had no conflict here. Councillor Dennison said we've got a statue erected in 1906. God forbid, the place was very different then. And there was still honour then, and there should be honour today. So just make sure, councillors, please, that you vote on the right side of history. All right, we're going to put them to the vote. So we've got 1, 2, 3A, 4, and 5. We will vote on that first, please. That's 16 votes for, none against. All right. Right. We will now vote on number 3B, which is around the independent member advice for audit. You can vote, please. And that has failed. 5 votes for, 11 against. All right, we'll now come to 3C, which is around rangitane representation. If you can vote, please. And that's failed. For lack of majority, that's 8 all. Or just... No, you've already spoken, sorry, councillor. So...
and inclusive. So before I jump into the year that was, I wanted to take the opportunity to recap on the way we work and how we set our focus for each year while keeping a long-term view. Each year, our shareholders, Palmerston North City Council and Manawatu District Council, jointly set out their expectations for CEDA through the Statement of Expectation, outlining the core areas of focus and top priorities. From here, CEDA takes these expectations and priorities and looks to the region's vision and goals, the latest data and insights, and our key pillar projects to develop our strategic framework and programs of activity for each year. Most of our work is long-term, and in fact some of our projects take us out to 2050 and beyond. But that's what economic development is, supporting the region to thrive by taking a long-term view to future-proof and enhance, so we're working for today's communities and for the people of tomorrow. These are some of the key indicators for our region for the 2024-25 year, as highlighted in our annual report. Unlike many regions in New Zealand, we're relatively sheltered from economic shocks, thanks to our diversity of sectors. However, that doesn't mean we are completely unscathed, and the past 2 years have shown that. In the year to June, our GDP dropped slightly by 0.8%, which is in line with the national decline. Our visitor spending rose by 2.6% against a national rise of 1.2%. And our total earnings, salaries, wages and self-employment income rose 5.5% year on year. It's in times like this, when we see those dips and bumps, that we need to remain focused on the long-term opportunities and the projects to future-proof our region. However, we're seeing some positive signs of growth, and business sentiment is cautiously optimistic as we look to the year ahead. Some of our stronger indicators include a 44.4% rise in non-residential or commercial building consents, compared with a national decline of 0.09%. And finally, reflecting on the strong economic trajectory we've experienced in recent years, our 5-year GDP was up 11.1%, which is on par with the national increase of 11.2%. Another good indicator that we're back on track and the future is bright. I'll now hand over to Jackie and Janet, who will talk through some highlights and key outcomes of the past year. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Tēnā koutou katoa. Jerry wanted to give his apologies today as well for not being here. He's away at the EDNZ conference. So just some highlights from the year, as up on the slide there. As you know, CEDA's work is broad and varied, and I'm happy to report today that we have delivered on 100% of our statement of intent performance outcomes for the 24-25 year. Janet will talk about our 3 pillar strategies and projects in a moment, but first I wanted to highlight a few of our key outcomes for the region for the past year. So we engaged with 650 businesses over the year, and our Net Promoter Score from the Regional Business Partners Program hit +75, which is up from +67 in the previous year, showing that we're delivering meaningful and valuable business support to our businesses. Our tourism trade work scaled up significantly, including our regional debut at the largest travel trade show in New Zealand, Trends, where we represented 12 commissionable tourism offerings from our region to over 60 travel buyers. We also secured 49 media features through our extensive regional and national partnerships, with each feature designed to showcase our region to businesses, investors, new talent and visitors. Janet.
Kia ora. So as Katie mentioned, the 3 pillar projects and strategies underpin CEDA's mahi. They're living strategies, and they outline the key areas of opportunities and challenges for our region, which in turn helps to guide our focus each year, while still retaining the ability to be agile as things can move quickly, as we've learnt from recent years. So just to focus in on these 3 key ones, Te Tanganui, alongside growing interest from central government and the commercial sector, we've had some really great opportunities to take Te Tanganui to national and international audiences. We've also refreshed the strategy, which was originally built in 2020 and had strong endorsement from our key partners across the Lower North Island, across economic development agencies and local government. And then we also have the new standalone website delivered in this space. For the regional food strategy, as part of the land diversification stream in that, we advanced the in-depth report and launched the first of its kind in New Zealand, an interactive crop suitability map, which looks at supporting landowners and farmers looking at, diversifying their land and income streams. We're actually now seeing other regions take our lead and our learnings from that and start developing their own. In parallel to that, phase 2 of the Sustainable as Attainable program progressed, which looked at practical solutions for food processing, waste and byproducts in collaboration with businesses, universities and research and development partners. Within the Destination Management Plan, following our Trade Ready program work, we established a visitor sector collective, so they now meet quarterly and we've got upwards of 30 people that come along to that. We've also launched a new trade hub for our inbound agents as part of progressing the work that Jackie touched on earlier, and actually today we've got 10 Australian agents in region working with some of our key operators as part of a FMIL program. We also had our local advocacy campaign, something that was a little bit of a different shift for us, but part of the Destination Management Plan around creating more local advocates and champions, particularly to drive our visiting friends and whānau markets. And we've also got the 3rd year of the Garden Festival pilot, which is our cluster development project. Last year saw 40% of attendees from out of region. The 3rd year is kicking off today. If you haven't got your tickets, they're available online. And then just wanted to take a moment while we had you. We often get plenty of interest in Cedars Mahi around inward investment, so we just wanted to give you a quick recap and overview of this work in this space, because it can be quite nebulous. It's not a linear or uniform process, and nor is it a fast one, with some of our projects spanning upwards of 5 years. No two projects in this space are ever the same. And our advocacy aligns with our key pillar strategies that I just touched on, ensuring that we've got to focus on priorities while remaining agile to seize new opportunities. So our work in this space varies. It includes positioning the region as a compelling place to do business nationally and globally, delivering targeted investment pitches supported by our prospectus suite, media and PR to make sure that the region's top of mind for the right opportunities. Also a lot of work in connecting local opportunities with investors, developers and partners. That facilitation space is really important to us, and matching regional needs with suitable capital and expertise, so working closely with central and local government. Another area of work is around leading and supporting projects to secure government grants and funding on behalf of the region, and collaborating with our shareholder councils, of course, to ensure investors have clear pathways and the right information. Underpinning all of that, we've got a robust triage process in place to ensure that we carefully consider every opportunity and ensure that we're focused where we should be and we don't jump at every toot. We're also actively curating and progressing a diverse portfolio of numerous investment opportunities that reflect our region's area of strengths as well as growth potential. So we're part of the wider regional and national ecosystem in this space, and depending on the project, our role will shift to suit between lead, facilitator, connector or advocate, and ultimately we're here to ensure our region is investment ready, visible and positioned to capture transformative opportunities. And as always, our CEO Jerry has an open door policy. He's always available to catch up should you want to have a coffee or get more detail in this space.
So then finally, just a comment on our financial performance. Cedars' financial position for the year saw a moderate surplus of 118k against the budgeted deficit of 11. Major variances were mostly in relation to additional government funding that we supported. We gained for the He Ara Kotahi He Ara Korero project and for the Regional Events Promotion Fund, and there's a council contribution to the Wait What local campaign that Janet just spoke about. Other variances were in relation to some additional spend that we did in regional marketing and inward investment, with some savings in talent and business development spending. We also had savings in our office-related costs due to the move to our new offices, and recruitment with no staff changes over the year. Just to note that we don't have any tax to pay on the surplus because we have losses to bring forward from previous years, which is good. So that's our year in summary, and we're happy to take any questions. We also have a couple of team, Greg and Tainui, in the audience if they need to step in and help us answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation team, and the report was excellent. I did just have a couple of questions out of the presentation slides. First, I think you highlighted it at the beginning there that we're 13th in tourism spending, which always surprises me how well we do in that space. Who do we sit alongside in that 13th ranking?
So we sit just above some of our counterpart regions like Taranaki, I guess probably just below Taupo. The big dogs, I guess, are Wellington, Auckland, Queenstown and Waikato. So we're nicely placed. There's 31 regions in that categorisation. That's the regional tourism organisations in New Zealand. A lot of our spend, because we're not reliant on peak seasons and things, the business travel, health travel, leisure, visiting friends and whānau, and of course our infrastructure pipeline, which is driving a lot of bookable stays within our accommodation sector. So we've sat around sort of 12, 13 for the last 3-4 years quite steadily.
So just that last point you made, that's to people travelling for work coming into Palmerston North.
So it's basically just captured on any type of spend of anyone who's not a resident of our region. So yeah, it's across any type of travel. But I think what we're seeing with that consistency and why we haven't had any major peaks or troughs is because we've got that consistency around business and investment travel.
That's great. And this might be related, but I wasn't clear. You talked about, you've established a visitor sector collective. And I wondered, what's that?
Yeah, so I think when we first started our trade journey as a result of the destination management plan, when we looked at, moving from mainly domestic to growing our international market, we created some, I guess, targeted workshops and capability building for visitor sector businesses. And what really came through strongly in those sessions was that they're so busy working in their own business, being everything from HR to cleaning to marketing to, the standard small business story. They didn't get opportunities to connect with others in a similar situation and area. So we created a quarterly meeting, and it's a 3 to 4 hour session which is hosted at a different operators every quarter, so we get to showcase and connect these businesses, and out of that we're already getting the makings of product clustering, so businesses working together to market stronger and I guess just share best practice. We share our insights and the latest need to knows for the industry. So they've started at about 20 and we're now sort of having to keep them at 40 just so that we can fit them at the operator venues.
So the outcomes you're looking for from that, will that be captured in your forward reporting?
I guess in a number of ways, so more within our sector development work around those key initiatives. So we have a focus for each collective that we hold. So the one coming up in, I think next week, we've got Tourism New Zealand coming in to present on some of their offshore plans, particularly in markets that are relevant to us, so Australia, UK and US. So I guess it's part of our ongoing upskilling program in our sector development work. So it'll show up lightly in that way, but we also do report on it through our, I guess, sector newsletters and things too.
Right. Thank you. I look forward to hearing how that one goes. Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, firstly, for the wonderful work that you guys do across the region. Could you please just comment for me around the employee expense, which seems to have increased approximately 12.5% throughout the year?
I'm going to have to think on that one. It was not something that's been hugely on our radar. We have had some changes over the year. Employee expenses around recruitment and all that sort of thing have been lower because we haven't had to recruit. So it's the first time for a while that we have had, not for a while, but this, that we've had a full team without any changes during the year. And so it's been consistent this year compared to last year, which was not consistent.
Okay, so there could have been a period of underemployment in the previous year. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Kuru.
Oh, kia ora. I was just wondering if you could tell me about the uptake for the crop map, like how many farmers have uptaken it?
I don't have the numbers to hand, but happy to get those and we can follow up with you. But we have, as a result of launching that, now got an official partnership agreement with Federated Farmers as well. So we've got, I guess, better inroads to working with landowners and farmers. We've had really good, I guess, positive engagement and feedback, and we've actually run a lean workshop as part of it. So I guess the sentiment seems really good and positive, but the actual numbers, I'd have to come back to you if that's okay.
I've got another numbers question, I'm so sorry.
Go
I
for
should
it.
have sent this to you before. I was just wondering what outcomes have been achieved through the Accelerate Academy and the youth entrepreneurship programs, and do we have anything specific for agriculture?
Those are great questions, and I'm actually going to ask Greg to come down because this is his area of expertise.
So the Accelerate Academy is it's a program we've developed with UCOL and the health sector. So it's almost a perfect model of how do we get our young people into careers in a sector, and we're looking forward as we'd be looking to take that into other sectors, just to answer the primary part of your question. In terms of the kind of numbers part, we've run it now for 3 years, and we've had over 100 rangatahi each time. In terms of the impact, I guess this is a sequencing of time. So at the moment, it's an anecdotal measure of we capture feedback from those sessions. We are working with UCOL as how do we measure that sort of longer term impact of bringing young people into the space and whether they actually go into those career pathways. So that will be something we're looking at in the future.
Fantastic. I was just wondering too if at some stage we could get something qualitative, like some sort of good stories about what's happened and, the positive results.
Yep, there are some good stories.
Yeah.
There's a really amazing one, actually, if anyone's a TikToker. But it's actually something that's really impressive, so I'll make sure that gets circulated.
Fantastic, thank you.
Councillor Harpiter, online.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
great. Just one question. It's about Te Tanganui. Have you had any confirmation or any discussions with Wellington about whether or not you're going to be getting any external funding from Wellington?
Yes, in simple terms. So we're at a fairly pointy end of a RIF application, which has been looking really positive in terms of the interaction with Kanoa, who manage the fund. We're likely to hear about that in late November, so when I say we're at the pointy end, we're well and truly at the pointy end.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, team. Just one question from me on page 192, which is page 52 of your papers. Regarding council funding, I note that the PNCC's funding has increased by 4.7% this year, but Manawatu District Council's only increased by 2.4%. Is there a reason that we ask for non-equal amounts of funding changes from both councils, or did you ask for 4.7 from both and they said no? How did we end up in that situation where proportionately this year we're now paying more than we were last year?
Council funding for CEDA is done through your annual budget process, so we get informed of what our increases are each year.
So it's not a request you make, it's what MDC offers?
Say that again, sorry?
So it's not a request you make to MDC, it's something that they offer to you of how much they can afford?
How much has gone into the budget through that planning process?
All right, thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just building on Councillor Kuru's question, actually, in terms of that land use tool or the crop tool, quite a few proposals out at the moment, including some quite large-scale ones for energy farming rather than for food or fiber farming. I just wanted to know, is CEDA involved in any conversations around developing renewable energy further in the region, and if there's any movement towards incorporating some of that into that tool so that farmers and other landowners can get some perhaps objective perspective on what some people might be shopping them through the letterbox.
So at this stage, the tool doesn't include solar farm usage. It is it's a view on alternative crops alongside normal farming systems. So it's as well as, it's not instead of. I guess the work sort of mentioned a hyper data centre which relates to Te Utanganui. There are some significant conversations around obviously green energy in that space. So whilst directly we're not leading those, through those partnerships we are having conversations around development of alternative energy in the region.
All right, just before I go to Councillor Dennison, obviously the regional food strategy is a living thing. It's it's something that continues from year to year, and 2025 was the year of agri-food. What does 2026 look like, or what are the main key focuses for that? Do we know yet, or is that a work in progress?
So we're just wrapping up the year of agri-food, which focused on, I guess, showcasing our region's strengths and why we're a leader in this space through leveraging the very significant calendar of events we had and everything related to agri-food research and tech. So 2026, from that storytelling and regional positioning, but we'll probably shift more into our investment work and tie into that land diversification opportunities. And then I guess our key focus areas for the food strategy will continue the work streams we've got. So we've just launched the new crop docs, which look at targeted crops that are suitable for our region, and we've got some live examples and landowners already working quite heavily in that space. So there's a few, I guess, probably pushing more into that profiling and in mid-investment space for 2026.
I suppose what goes with that is also the facilities or the expertise to, like, cool stores and all those sorts of things. And I understand there's been some quite big developments there.
Yeah, so we've just had Mancold expand their footprint significantly. They sit within Te Utanganui as part of the Kawakawa industrial precinct. So there's some really good, live opportunities and recent developments that showcase everything from wet processing, storage, manufacturing, but also with our food pilot processing capabilities. It's a really strong ecosystem, and I think the Year of Agri-Food has really helped that become better recognised as well. So we work closely with the conference team at PNCC around those opportunities and bringing more, conferences and delegations to the region that can leverage off that expertise.
Okay. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in regards to your cash or cash equivalents and just seeing it's growing over the total financial assets, can I understand, have you got a policy or a guide of how much reserves that you should carry year to year?
We review the equity balance on a 6 and 12 monthly basis. Generally, we try and sit around that 500k. Just allows for finishing off any projects or anything like that, or any outlays that we might need where we to cease existing. It does go up and down based on, we've had a lot of government funding over recent years, ever since COVID really, which has changed the levels that we've had. So we were up to a bit of a higher level, I think a couple of 3 years ago, that grant raised, and that we have brought that down. That surplus this year obviously has played into that being a bit higher than we would generally keep it at.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies for needing to come back in the queue. Just did want to pick up as well with CETA around some of the information that comes across in the overview stats for the region, particularly around population, which the number that's there suggests quite good growth, but is a bit dated. The upcoming report from the City Economist probably has a bit more of a nuanced view around population growth. Is there any engagement between the city or anyone else to try to get more refined numbers before they get into infographics?
For these infographics, we work directly with Stacey and Kian at PNCC to make sure that we're using the latest available data, but also through a lot of our other work, particularly around inward investment, when we're looking at things that are a bit more challenging to get good data for, such as population growth. We work with them around even that forecasting, because that's part of our proposition, is that I guess we are in the middle of 1 million people, and that helps with a lot of our attracting manufacturers and exporters here. So yeah, we do work hand in hand with the City Council on
Great.
developing these.
Oh, that's really good to hear. I guess follow up from that then would be kind of how historic data becomes before it's judged to not really be worth including. We've got 2023 data in the 2025 report here.
Yeah, I think, and it is a great question. I think we just try and give this, these are kind of the at a glance key metrics when you think of, I guess, economic development that we use, but it is really challenging. Like the data space in New Zealand is quite lumpy and it's full of holes. So yeah, we do struggle with that, and sometimes even our quarterly reporting will have data from 6 to 12 months ago, but it's the latest picture we've got, and it does help with that broader context, but it's certainly something we can consider for our annual reports, omitting in future.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, that's our questions gone, so thank you. We'll get our recommendation up there. No, we're not on a break. Okay, so no. Okay, so this is around recommendation to council. The council, you can step back into the gallery, thank you. So recommendation to council. Oh, okay, in my papers, right. The council received the Central Economic Development Agency CEDA annual report for 2024-25 attachment 1. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look, can I just acknowledge the CEDA team? Thank you for the work that you're doing out there. Economic development is a long game, and I acknowledge Jerry's up flying the flag at the Economic Development Agency conference in Auckland today and tomorrow. And for those councillors, I think there was a couple of us at the Chamber of Commerce AGM last night as well, and it does see the city and the wider region in reasonably good state, although there has been some sectors that have really struggled, and I suppose the good thing is there is opportunity and there's some green shoots coming into the future, and we'll probably hear a bit more about that from our own people a little bit later this afternoon. I really want to see us continue that good work around Tūtanganui. We are so close to getting some good news there, whether it be around the commercial side, the infrastructure side. Certainly the air side is happening, which we have a little bit more control on, but the road and the rail is very much part of that conversation as well. But on the food side, amazing stuff happening in the background, and just want to acknowledge that work that you've done around diversification of what farmers are doing, because that is quite critical in the changing environment of climate and what it does to the soil and everything else. And we are in a sweet spot where, if handled right, we can be quite agile here. End of 2026 and early 27 will see 3 of New Zealand's largest agri-food organisations celebrate significant milestones and anniversaries. Massey University, Fonterra Research, and the CRIs, or what was the old DSIR, all are 100 years in existence. And I know there has been some very strong conversations going on, and almost an agreement brokered where having a joint festival or food week, where they have their respective open days, bring the public onto campuses, into these organisations, really profiling the world-leading work that they do. Schools, businesses, having some independent sort of anniversaries themselves, and but also coming together for a collective event and as such. So I think we should be really promoting that as much as we can. But again, thank you for the work that you do. Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with your comments there. I just wanted to comment, there's a little statement in your report that says, CEDA is a team of people who are passionate about our region. And I just want to say that that's what I see from the board right through to your team. And thank you, Katie, for representing the board today. I always feel confident that we're in good hands with you as people who passionately believe about the value proposition of this region. And you always surprise me with the things you do. I'm surprised at the places that you turn up in that I'm also in as well. You go into bat for our region, and we really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. There was an excellent question that came from Councillor Kuru about that storytelling aspect of the work you do. And I particularly want to commend that stakeholder email that comes out regularly. I think for me that's a good source of that understanding what the long game that the Mayor referred to of economic development actually looks like on the ground. Elected members, that sometimes files itself in your junk. You might have to go look for it and tell your system that is not in fact junk. But it's a really valuable addition to the hard data that comes through your reporting. So thank you very much for that. And one last comment on last night's AGM with the Chamber. Really positive to see those two arms of how we engage with our business community working so collaboratively together. And I was particularly impressed, and I know Councillor Wood was as well, with the piece of work that's coming with the Young Chamber to do that Economic Development 101 kind of setup, so that our next generation of business leaders and owners understands the value of economic development and in that long game. I think that's an incredibly important piece of work. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. Right, we've got the recommendation. We'll vote, please. Okay, that's passed. 16 votes for and none against. Thank you. So, colleagues, we're going to break now because we have some people coming in around hearings of submissions at 1 o'clock, which we've still got a bit to do. And we'll get through that and then we'll get back to our substantive after that. So, enjoy your break.